Today, Donald Trump made his first visit to Capitol Hill since he was president, his first time on the Hill since his followers ransacked the Capitol on January 6th. But to understand why Trump chose to come back now, after more than 3 years away, you don't have to look as far back as the insurrection. You just have to remember what Trump has been asking Congress to do since his criminal conviction 2 weeks ago. The day after Trump was convicted of 34 felony counts in his New York hush money case, 8 Republican senators vowed to oppose all Biden nominees and all Democratic legislation as retribution. Today, 6 Republican senators, led by Trump vice presidential shortlister J.D. Vance, put the oppose all Biden nominees part of that vow into writing. Senators explained that they would block nominees, including anyone who has suggested the Trump prosecutions were reasonable, anyone who endorsed Trump's guilt, anyone who supported organizations that celebrated the indictment of Donald Trump, and anyone who supported Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg or supported lawfare or censorship in other ways, which is just vague enough to include basically anyone President Biden has nominated. Now, these Republican senators say that their blockade will last until Election Day. And in practical terms, that means the U.S. government will not be able to appoint representatives to things like the UN General Assembly or the World Health Organization, or even to the not particularly political seeming places like the International Civil Aviation Organization and the Public Buildings Reform Board. What exactly did any of those organizations have to do with prosecuting Donald Trump? Nothing. This isn't about policy. It is about retribution. You might remember that last year, Senator Tommy Tuberville pulled a similar sort of stunt. Tuberville became the first U.S. senator in history to do a long-term blockade of U.S. military appointments. Senator Tuberville kept more than 400 qualified U.S. service members, 400, from being appointed or promoted for 10 months, all because of a Department of Defense abortion policy that had nothing to do with those service members. The blockade was such a blatant misuse of power, it wasn't just Democrats who were appalled by this. Here were some of Tuberville's fellow Republican senators on month 9 of his stunt.
No matter where you believe it or not, Senator Tuberville, this is doing great damage to our military.
This power is extraordinary that we're given as individual senators, but it's incumbent upon us to use it in a reasonable way.
Everybody uses holds. I certainly use holds. But the key is you put a hold on someone who typically has some kind of control over the issue that you're trying to fix.
There's not one senator in here that could not find a reason to object to an administration policy in the military. None of us. We could all find something. I just hope we don't do this routinely.
I just hope we don't do this routinely. Does 2 times count as a routine? Because if so, this makes it a routine. And this time it isn't even about a policy disagreement, however tangential. It's just so Republicans can protest Donald Trump being found guilty by a jury of his peers. Today, we also saw 29 Republican senators sign on to this letter, disparaging the rule of law and saying that Trump's conviction was nothing short of the evisceration of the American judicial process. So it is safe to say that from now until November, the U.S. Senate is effectively going to be at a standstill and unable to govern, not because of policy disagreements, but so Republicans can perform an act of retribution on Donald Trump's behalf. As for the House, where Republicans actually hold the majority, well, things are looking even worse. Politico is out with new reporting today saying that in the days after Trump's conviction, Trump made an F-bomb-filled call to Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. Trump's message to Johnson: we have to overturn this. And now, a few weeks after that call, it looks like Speaker Johnson's mission is not just to grind the government to a halt like his Republican colleagues in the Senate. It is to actually use the power of the government to try and make Trump's criminal concerns go away. By way of an example, yesterday, House Republican leaders spent the day whipping votes for a bill that would allow presidents charged at the state level to move those cases to federal court. Let me just check my notes here. How many presidents have been criminally charged at the state level again? Oh, only one. What an interesting use of congressional power. Politico also reports that Speaker Johnson is in talks with House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan about using the appropriations process to target special counsel Jack Smith and to defund his investigation. Now, neither of those have the votes to pass yet. But that is the kind of stuff that Republicans in Congress are working on right now, which really helps put into context why Donald Trump went back to Capitol Hill today. It wasn't for any legitimate legislative concern. It was for what Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz called a pep rally for President Trump. A pep rally complete with an early birthday party for Donald Trump himself.